Holy Sigma, we are at a very OG lot, but the cops are kicking us out of our lot, so there's literally, I went to the lot today to make this video, and there's 2 cops sitting there, so new lot. Today I'm going to teach you guys how to do wheelies on your 1000cc motorbike like a pro. Let me check my list real quick of all the things that we're gonna do though. Freaking daylight savings time sucks so much, dude. We need to spring forward and leave it forever. Freaking, I'm racing the sun, getting off work, trying to come here and do this. All right, we are gonna go over the RPMs, the PSI, what gear, what power mode, the speed. We're gonna talk about slow wheelies, fast wheelies, clutch ups, power wheelies, engine brake, foot brake, body position, and sit down versus staggered, because a lot of people on 1000s do staggered. PSI, my rear tire's higher than you'd probably want to learn wheelies on, but I'm running like the recommended amount, like 30 something, whatever. Gear, typically I'm doing second, maybe third. Second, low speed. First, if it's really low speed, so in here, maybe first. Second, I guess we'll kind of just get into it when I'm going certain speeds. Third and fourth on the highway. Dang, my bike's getting hot. Anyway, let's just get into it. Let's start going back and forth. So, also, power modes. I'm going to be in B mode. Man, my bike is 226. Yeah, I'm going to do B mode. Let's start with a second gear. Watch my RPMs. Takes a lot of RPMs. And then because we're in a higher gear at lower speed, we have less engine brake. So, once we're dipping back, we're mostly foot brake. Let's try first gear, check the RPMs. Pops up a lot quicker. And we probably can't do third gear. Now let's try different power mode. Actually, let's try to pull the bike down real quick by just getting some air. Man, I'm really surprised it's running so hot. It's not even hot right now, really. All right, let's change the power mode. Do an example of C mode. C is going to be weaker. It's going to be easier to control the throttle technically because it's less power to tame. But the thing I don't like about C mode is it feels like more laggy, less responsive than B. First gear, yeah, see, just like that. Don't like it as much. Not too bad in the wheelie, but once we start putting it back down, I'm not really a fan. It's just not really enough power. Second gear. Yeah, and that was really laggy coming up, so I'm not so much a fan of that. Let's try A mode. First gear, I'm actually a little concerned with how that's gonna go because A mode is really powerful. Woo! Oh geez. Yeah, A mode, first gear, way too much power for this low of speed. Don't do it. Let's try second gear. Better, but obviously B mode is looking like our winner. So we're probably going to be doing second gear B mode for most of this stuff, especially low speed. Alright, so slow wheelies versus fast wheelies. Unfortunately, I can't really show like fast wheelies much because the highway is like gets me demonetized. But basically fast wheelies, you're just going to apply all the same concept except like higher gear, but everything's going to stay the same. If you can master it slow, you can definitely do it fast. But just because you can do it fast does not mean you can do it slow. A lot of people on 1000s do staggered instead of sit downs. The reasons they like to do staggered is because they can see better than they can in a sit down. And I don't really like staggered, especially if you're trying to learn to dip. It's just kind of not my cup of tea. But you know, other people learn a lot better by doing it. So let's do one. We're gonna put our foot on the back peg, clutch up, do a little dipping, just like that. So you can definitely see how we can see way more. It's gonna burn your legs. Also, dipping is like way more sketchy than sit down in my opinion, but you know, to each their own. One of the things that people always ask me, and the reason why I'm making this video, is because people are like, what RPM do you rev to? What you guys need to do is start getting used to the sound of your bike at certain RPMs and like the muscle memory of what amount of throttle you're at when you're doing this stuff, because I probably look like such a dork to these people just going back and forth, but I have to keep the bike cool. But yeah, I'm never like actually watching my odometer when I'm doing this stuff. because it's just too distracting. You need to be just listening to it. So if I were to close my eyes or just look away and rev, like, that's not enough. But that sounds like, that's actually even more. You can hear like the difference between like the, where it's like whoa and when it's wah, you know? It starts screaming more when you're hitting the RPM range where you actually need a hit for it to clutch up. Now the next thing too is you can't just dump the clutch and let off the throttle. You have to keep your wrist staying on the throttle, and you're gonna have to stay on the throttle as you keep rising until you hit the point of dipping. Once you, like, you'll be on the throttle to balance point, and then to maintain balance point you still have to stay on the throttle, but you're keeping the throttle exact with maybe a little modulation. And then dipping, you're going to be fully off the throttle, and then that's when you're just going to start braking. Now this is the other thing a lot of people don't do who ride 1000s, is they either don't even cover their brake at all, or they just don't use it. They may cover it and they may think that by covering it they will use it if the time comes, but unless they've actually practiced it, they won't. So you need to be practicing way before you ever get to the point of balance point. You need to be practicing using your brake. Oh, there's a motorcycle. Shit, man. Probably test riding the bikes. Let's ride now over there. Yeah, and if you don't drill foot brake, you're 100% the first time you like start dipping and falling, you're gonna bail, because your natural reaction is gonna be to put your feet down and break your fall. So unless you like drill the foot brake to the point where your new reflex or reaction is to actually press the brake, then you're not gonna press it. No matter how much you think by knowing the information that you'll do it, you won't. You have to get it like locked into your muscle memory way before you hit it, or you're gonna loop. And you don't really have to loop to do this stuff, but if you can get like a small bike first and just loop that over and over again, that'll help you a lot, because it is really nice to experience that looping feeling on like a tiny little dirt bike where you're not gonna get hurt, and experience that you know, in a controlled environment way before you like experience it on the big bike. Because then even if you were to foot brake, you're not going to know how much to press it, and you may just slam it and throw yourself over the front. So congratulations, you didn't loop, but now you went flying and then your bike ran you over. So you still didn't really win, and your bike still probably gets totaled, but maybe not, I don't know. So as far as like how much brake you're actually going to need to press, we're not really going to get into that so much. It's more so just like the precise like RPM ranges of like what I'm actually hitting to lift up. Also, I'm stock gearing on this bike. A lot of people always like when they see somebody wheelie good, they're like, what gearing do you have? What gearing do you have? It's just stock. And even if it was bigger, it really wouldn't matter. Gearing makes a difference, yes, but it's not the cheat code to wheelies. Because this bike, I would argue, is actually easier to wheelie than my 62 636. That bike has so much torque that it's actually difficult to control. But this bike, like the A mode of this bike is like the 62 636. It's difficult, maybe a little more difficult, but it's still difficult. Sprocket size may benefit you in like minor changes, but like just because you see some stunt bike with a pizza sized sprocket, that doesn't mean that like they couldn't wheelie your bike. They can probably wheelie your bike better than you know. Flexing that you have a stock sprocket, like, it doesn't really mean anything, honestly. If you know how to wheelie, you know how to wheelie. If you can scrape a grom on command, you can translate all that same stuff to a big bike. Even though this tutorial is for people on a 1000, my suggestion to you is always going to be get a smaller bike, learn, and then come back to the bigger bike. Alright, so body position of sit down and staggered. Now, I wanted to find a cameraman for today, but unfortunately my boy Calvin, he had to drive 2 hours away so he could get his driver's license renewed, so he was not available for me. But anyway, body positioning. So if you see me wheelie, probably you're gonna see how more like in a sit down I'm a little more extended. Typically I'm more extended because I'm trying to provide a good like view for the camera. But when you're actually learning, the best thing you can do, because a lot of people will like clutch up and they'll like literally like tuck into the bike for some reason. What you need to do is sit up straight, keep your body in the same position, and bring the bike to your body. So I'm gonna sit in the same position, clutch up, and bring the bike to me. So by bringing the bike to me, I'm closer to the tank. My arms are going to be a little bit more tucked. This is going to help you have like a better reference for like the height that the bike's actually at. If you're changing where you're at every time you wheelie, then you're always going to be a little thrown off of like where the bike really is. And unless you're like getting somebody to video you every single time so you can get a reference and start building the connection between like what it feels like and what it actually looks like, then it's really best to just kind of like try to keep your body in a specific position so you kind of know where you're at, and then gauge where the bike is at based on it coming to you. And if you want to extend your arms, you could do that too. But the thing is, you're going to probably feel farther back if you're leaning back with it versus like if I'm up here, you know, this is back, this is up. So it definitely feels different, but at the same time, like, do what feels comfortable too, because being comfortable in what you're doing is like kind of a big part of wheelies. Now body position on Staggered, and we'll also do a little bit of knee knocker, although I want to, no, actually I'm going to save knee knocker for a specific video, because there's actually kind of a lot that I could analyze that. But Staggered, let me do one. So a lot of people who do Staggered, I feel like squat like really hard. I actually kind of try to straighten my legs out a bit more, especially this left leg, because the more squatted you are, the more you're gonna burn your leg up. But I mean, obviously you can't not squat at all. You know, you can only extend it so much, but the more you can get it extended, the better. And this right leg, you're probably gonna have pretty straight. So yeah, pretty straight. Maybe a little bit of bend though. And how close are we to the bike? So you can either hug your tank with your legs, kinda, or you can kind of sit back. Stagger's like kind of however you do it based on your body proportions, but knee knocker is kind of more specific, especially when it comes to like planting the weight in your knee rather than like sitting back in it. But I'm gonna make something more dedicated to that. There's kind of a lot to that, and nobody really does knee knockers. Avery, my friend Avery, is like the only one that I'm actually starting to see of the fast boys who actually likes doing knee knockers or tries them. The way he does it, he's probably still getting arm pump, and when you do knee knockers, you really should be able to like have so much weight in just your knee that you can like take your hand off and do a one-hander, and like your knee is what should start burning more than your arms. For example, I can do a one-hander. Now let's get into the really slow wheelies. So say you're super advanced and you want to learn how to circle wheelie your 1000. So I'm gonna put my foot down, and I'm gonna have to rev really high because I need it to come up instantly. So get a little like test revs, 6 to 7,000. 6, 7. It's like looking pretty good. I think we're gonna have to go a little higher though. So let's see. And then we're up. Now once we're up, I'm pretty much immediately straight to the clutch. Yep. It's really easy to stall the 1000. A lot of the time when I'm sit down circling like the 1000, I'm gonna be like either fully on the clutch, so it's kind of just coasting what initial like amount that I had, and as it starts to drop, I'll let the clutch out, or I might be like somewhat half pulled on the clutch. And I still prefer B mode for this. I don't really like C for like anything. I never use that mode. So let's try again. And we gotta get way more gas in the initial clutch up. There we go, clutch pulled. Start the dip, a little bit of gas. So the circle wheelies is like literally all just in the clutch. There's barely any throttle. Like I'm pretty much only using the idle of the bike, and really all just clutch. Now this, we got no clutch, just engine brake, but we can still go pretty slow. That brings us into one more topic that I get a lot of questions on is, when you dip, do you pull the clutch? I do sometimes, just if I want to, just to like rev the bike a little bit or whatever, because it's cool. But like as somebody learning, like pulling the clutch for the wheelie is like a really advanced thing. It's just like I'll do it, clutch pulled, once it comes down, being able to like not panic and jump too much gas and shoot back up and like backflip, like you're gonna have to be really advanced. Once again, the way that I learned clutch control like that was on a Grom, and like had my fair share of like little sketchy things on the Grom, I'm sure, when I was learning, or like pulling the clutch and slamming the bike down, because finding the spot where you can like pull the clutch in is kind of like, I mean, it doesn't have to be too specific, I guess. You could dip as far back as you want and pull the clutch, but the range where you have to like at least get to be able to pull the clutch without it slamming down is pretty high up. And you really don't want to do that anyway, because engine brake is your friend when it comes to wheelies. Like engine brake helps you coast the dips out, and like you're using foot brake too, but like if you're pulling the clutch, then you're only on foot brake, and then like the smoothness of your wheelie really is like determined by how good at foot braking you are. And it's just a lot easier to be smooth by using engine brake primarily, with just tiny bits of like foot brake modulation, because it really seems like the foot brake gets like insanely sensitive when you pull the clutch. I don't know why it seems to feel like it's so much more touchy when you pull the clutch, but it just is. That's just how it is. So a lot of people, the second they pull the clutch, they end up slamming down real hard. And if they do manage to coast it, if they try to throttle out, they sometimes shoot right back up and crash. So if you're asking, should I pull the clutch? No. All right, last thing, I probably should have mentioned like first, but power wheelies versus clutch ups. I don't even really know, like in the lot, if I could power wheelie this thing. Maybe in A mode, but I don't know about B. Let's see. Yeah, you can, but like in such a small lot like this, to be able to get the bike up to where I need it to hit the RPM range where the bike's actually powerful enough to power wheelie, I'm really not hitting that in here. If I was doing this demonstration on the highway, yeah, you could like drop down and power wheelie, and I know people are scared of clutch ups because they think they're unpredictable, and like a power wheelie is not somehow, but like in my opinion, the power wheelie is more unpredictable. I mean, you can make it as predictable as possible by sitting in the power band, and you know what I like to do to power wheelie too is not just rip it, but actually rip a little bit, let off the gas so the suspension compresses, and on that rebound you rip it again and it comes up a lot easier. So like if I were to power wheelie, yes, it would be more predictable, but still you're kind of relying on the power band. If you're relying on like the bike to kind of hit a certain point to be able to come up, then it may be started when you start the wheelie, or it may be kind of kicking in later. So you never really get to know exactly how fast it's going to come up. It may like rise up slow and then kick up, or it may just kick right up. But if you're clutching up, it's going to be the same every time if you give it the same amount of gas every time. So if you're learning wheelies and you're trying to just change one variable at a time to teach yourself, I can rev to 4, then I can rev to 5, then 6, then 7. And every time I change, like just by 1,000 RPM, if I'm revving to the exact same amount every single time, it's going to come up the same amount every single time. Also, if I'm going the same speed every time. So clutch ups are repeatable, power wheelies kind of are, but like I guess you could break down the same stuff too with like speed and RPM kinda, and then like just ripping the throttle as hard as you can. But as far as like low speed goes, because that's the other benefit of the clutch ups, it's like in here where I'm going 10 miles an hour and I need to come up quick so I'm not chasing into the wall, it's a lot more beneficial to like throw a lot of power in instantly, because the bike doesn't really have this like low end RPM range or low end like torque unless I rev up real hard and then dump it. And a lot of people think also that like doing clutch ups is gonna like destroy your bike. I don't know really why everybody thinks that. I've been wheeling for like 4 years and I've never had to replace a clutch on any of my bikes. Now, I mean, I haven't also owned any bike for like a huge amount of miles, but like, I don't know, I like you would think that if clutch ups were going to destroy a bike, surely by now I should have experienced that with one of them, but I haven't. Not on my stunt bike, not on any bike that I've ever had. And I've had like, I mean, I don't know how many different bikes I've had in the time I've been wheeling, but like in total I've owned like 14 bikes. I've never had to replace a clutch. And like there was a time where I sucked at the clutch ups too, and I was bad at the timing, and I was like really jerky. I wasn't smooth at all. I don't know. It's just, I think it's like people who maybe are like really bad at doing them that somehow mess them up, or maybe they're bad at maintaining their bike and then they just have a clutch plate explode while they're doing a clutch up one day and they blame it on that. But like all the stunters I know, and including myself, like it's not a common thing to see somebody just like randomly have a clutch explode, you know? So it's kind of a misconception. I don't really think you should be scared of wheelies. Like obviously, yeah, by doing this you are gonna, like, the clutch is a wearable part and you are gonna be wearing it down, but like it's like the timing of the snap of a finger, you know? And like especially if you get more advanced and you're smoother with it and you're like kind of like push and preload the forks real quick and like bounce into the clutch up a little more, and you're doing a little bit of yanking and like more of like a fluid motion rather than just sitting there completely still and then just revving and dumping. Once it starts smoothing out, like the better you get, I feel like the less damage it does as well. I'm not gonna deny that it does damage, because it probably, like on a really minor scale, does, but it clearly doesn't do enough. I've had this bike for like 2,000 miles already. I've been wheeling it throughout all 2,000 of the miles. Still no issues on my end. So yeah, so anyway, I believe we covered everything. If you guys enjoyed this video, drop a like, subscribe, tell your friends. We're probably not gonna hit 100K by the end of the year, but we did hit 75K, which I actually didn't even think we'd hit 50K by the end of this year. So we're doing a lot better than I expected. So thank you to everybody who subscribed. If you're a new subscriber, thank you for joining. And if you want to go more in depth on the tutorials that I have for wheelie, like if you want to get more in depth than this video got, because this video is really more about like the specific amounts of whatever I'm doing, not so much like breaking down like the thought process of like a wheelie and like everything that goes into it. It's just kind of like giving you the exact examples. But if you do want to get more, if you do want to go watch some videos that are more in depth, this video will be part of my stunt school playlist. Go find the stunt school playlist on my channel, or maybe I'll link it in the description. If I'm able to put the link in the pinned comment, I might do that too. But we have videos on there of like how to do combos, how to like master the foot brake, like that really prioritize like foot brake. If you don't even know how to clutch up, I think we've got clutch up and power wheelie tutorials, and just like a basic regular wheelie tutorial that explains where you actually need to be pressing the foot brake and stuff like that, and like how I think I explained the thought process of how I drilled learning the foot brake. And one of the things I want to mention real quick before y'all go, if you really want to learn wheelies, it's kind of something you have to like obsess over for a while. You need to be practicing at least like 30 minutes a day if possible, or at the very least I would say like 3 times a week. The best progression I ever had in my time of learning wheelies was when I was riding at least 3 times a week. And go to a lot. Don't just try to learn on the street. It's scary to try to learn on the street, because to push yourself while knowing there's like cars behind you that could run you over if you mess up, it's whether you think it affects you or not, it does. I progressed faster than anybody I knew at the time. It took me like 3 months to go from like chasing near balance point range to scraping my taillight, versus all my friends it took so much longer, because I wanted to get in the lot and learn, and they wanted to keep riding streets. And then my friends who like ride 1000s and have never like wanted to get a, you know, a little bike, they've been going at this for like years now, and they're, you know, some of them are just now hitting balance point range and like starting to like work their foot brake a little bit, which I'm still proud of them for like prioritizing foot brake and stuff like that. But if you want to learn fast, you have to put the time in. No amount of knowledge can replace seat time, and it will be easier if you get a small bike. If you can't afford a small bike, I get that. Or if like you don't want to sell your main bike to get a small bike, I completely get it. But in that case, go to the lot. And also, when you're trying to learn, dude, stop banging through the gears and ending your wheelie at 100 whatever miles an hour. Distance does not equal control or skill. If you are popping up first gear in the lot, once you have gained more than like 20 miles an hour, set it back down and restart. Stop trying to go all the way. Stop making your goal to get to the end of the lot and make your goal to actually like find balance point and have brake control. If you can hold balance point and have brake control, you will easily go as far as you want, whether it's from one end of the lot to the other or 10 miles. If you can actually control the bike and control the speed of the bike, you can go forever. But if you have to wheelie at 100 miles an hour to get from one side of this lot to the other, not only are you a danger to yourself, you're a danger to other people who could possibly not like misjudge your speed and pull out in front of you, but it's also just not impressive. Everybody looks at you going 100 miles an hour through the lot or street or whatever, and they think, wow, that guy's reckless and doesn't know how to wheelie. So nobody ever is like determining your skill or your progress on wheelies by distance, really. Like sometimes a little bit, and like if it was a Grom and you got from there to there, yes, that's kind of like, that's like an accomplishment, because it's not, if you're doing a first gear wheelie on a Grom, you do have to be pretty good at holding it up to get some decent distance. But like, once again, you can go forever. You can go as long as you want if you just actually master throttle control and foot brake. And the way that you stop gaining speed is by going higher. And the way that you don't fall once you go higher is foot brake. So thank you guys for watching. Shout out Riders Power Sports. I love you all. And I will see you in the next one.